I got it underway, and I pushed him towards the idea of doing film. And we were just talking about this, the idea that, you know, there's no undo, and you're committed, and it's happening in front of the camera, and you believe it's happening in front of the camera. And, you know, he was 6 years old, so he didn't really have a lot of experience to be unhappy with that or see it as a problem. So, yeah, I pushed him in that direction. And, I mean, he's still doing it as well. But what's funny to me is that it was, in some ways, me who took more out of the experience than he did. And in some ways, you know, it's particularly now that there are more endless variations on control, editing, filters, you know, endless footage and so on. I feel like I'm the one who benefited from having to commit to something and also to accept the limitations of that commitment, you know, the things you can't do with it.
I said yesterday to everybody, like, the rulers were something I figured out, and it took me forever to figure it out, and now I feel like it's a gimmick. Because it's very hard to break away from something that you love so much or that you figured out so well. It's like, why would I try something else when I know I can do this one real quick, but it doesn't give you the same love. It doesn't give you the same feedback. It doesn't excite your brain anymore. It just becomes something you're so used to, and it's just like, I'm used to a ceiling up there. I'm not going to look up.
I got the power of myself in terms of art, but not really, because every time that I start something, I don't know how I'm going to start it. And every time I'm going to start a painting, I'm shaking, you know, it's like, how I'm going to start this thing. When the painting or whatever animation or whatever I'm doing is going into the right direction, then I start feeling powerful, and I start thinking, that, wow, this is going well, and I feel awake, and I feel full of energetic.
And also, I felt like, you know, I only want to deal with one problem at a time, generally. I mean, that's an impossible ideal, but if you're doing something and you're dealing with drawing and painting and tonal work and color and scale or whatever, and the actual problems of working with oil paint, which is, you know, crazily difficult to really work. I mean, I paint from a reference. It's a photographic reference. It's not like I'm slavishly copying it, but I always have it there as kind of a guide and you know, a lodestar in a way. And the limitation is that I'm not really going to radically step outside of that at that moment. And I don't have to think about it. I'm not even thinking whether it's somebody's arm or drapery or anything. It's this line with this kink or that curve or that drop into shape or shadow or whatever. And that is, I mean, in a way, that's the most significant limitation, is that you're allowing yourself to focus all of your attention and resources on the pertinent problem at that moment, rather than trying to, you know, orchestrate the entire thing and all its various problems and elements.
But it doesn't really matter, because you can't really break away from your own style so much so that people would be like, who's this new artist? It's ingrained in you somewhere. The things you like, if I threw new things on top of it, it would diffuse only into the things I liked about it. So it's just, you gotta maybe take a day and say, you know what, I'm done with the rollers for a year. Maybe I'm gonna try something else, which is gonna happen today because my rollers didn't arrive 3 weeks ago. So in 2 hours, things are gonna get funny for me. But I love that. I love that, like, oh shit, all right, here we go. So we'll see what happens.
You have to be available, and you have to be open, and you have to be active as well. And this is something that I am active in. For example, in the case of getting a beautiful girl that you see in the street and you like it, I'm active and I go for her.
It's like just trying to get through like 8 airports in one day kind of thing. Three actually, was so stressful, because it's just like, I need this to do this, and you're like, this, what the fuck? Like, do you people not realize how dumb it is that you're all standing like here when you can just do this? And it's just all these little like depressing problems, and people just not being aware of how to just fix it. And to get that, you just have, I mean, for some people, they just naturally go that way. But for some people, they have to thrust themselves into those situations. I never traveled from America to Europe, and after one of my first solo shows, I decided I'm just going to go to Italy, and I went by myself, and it's so weird to land in a new place where I didn't understand the language. It sounds like everyone's angry at each other, but they're just talking about how good the cheese is, and so you realize like how disconnected. Like I am not an important person. I can't just go up to somebody and be like, "Excuse me, I need a bottle of water." I have to act like a child.
And taking a step back, sometimes it's really nice, because sometimes you'll see things in life that will be very interesting and will inform your artwork. I can't tell you how many times I've walked around and just been seeing something like, oh, I wonder how I would paint that. And I'm not actually drawing it, but I'm thinking about it in my head. And then I go back to the studio and I, put it down. And me taking a walk down San Francisco where I live is sometimes just as valuable as sitting down and painting 1 or 2 hours.
Of course. It's sometimes a good thing is to just walk out your door for no good reason, just go left. Yeah. And plus, if you don't want to experience that, you just walk around and look at all the new things that you've never experienced before, half a world away. But how often do you do that at home? Not often. I mean, you come back home and you're like, man, I'm going to explore my own area more often, and you do. But work or an email or just something comes in and you lose it, and it's really hard to maintain that. But to maintain that curiosity, to know that you need to maintain that sort of curiosity. Once you sort of remember to put it in your head, I think it sticks with you. It just needs to start at a young age, really, but it can be cultivated.
It's a quick story, but after being with my ex-girlfriend, I was in a very long relationship, super long time, and then after we broke up, I didn't know how to approach women. I didn't know how to behave. It's like I was 12 years in a relationship, always faithful and in love. And I was like, fuck, now what? I'm alone. It's been 6 months. I need to do something here, right? So I went to London to do a job, and I was in the underground reading a book, and then this girl in front of me, she was reading another book that I read, Frank Miller, Tropic of Cancer. She was really reading it, and the book is highly sexual, So it's like, fuck, this girl is reading this book right now, and she's cute and she's cool. I've been telling this story so many times that I don't even remember how the girl is. This whole story replays her look, So I'm looking at her and I'm reading the book, but obviously I'm not reading anything. I'm like A, B, B, and I'm actually going through the whole page, but I'm not reading. I'm looking at her and she's looking at me and smiling. And I'm getting bam, 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 super nervous. And we were like that for 2 stations in the same page. And I bet that she was the same. It's because she was continuously, we were exchanging looks, but I was petrified, I didn't know what to do. And then this station can come, with the train stops, she stand up, she close her book, she stand up, she walks away, the doors of the train close, she look at me through the window and she does and I was like, what the fuck? What? And then I start getting desperate, fuck, Sally, stop in the next train. Stupid of me, I took the next train, go back and trying to go to that station, hoping that maybe she was waiting there, And I was like, you cannot do that. Anytime that you see something that is interesting for you, the life is short, you need to go and you need to jump. And you really need to do it. And many times you look like a psycho. Sometimes sometimes you don't even have anything to do, but at least you try. Don't keep all that shit inside. I think that's cool. And that's how I met not only girlfriends, that's how I met many friends. I see something that interests me, and then I start talking to her, and then maybe we never had anything, but she became a very good friend that introduced me with somebody else, and that's pretty. If we are always in our cave and we don't do anything, then that's what we're going to have. Nothing, I guess.
it's easy to speak about it. It's easy to say it. But when it comes to practice, it's difficult. You know, like anything is difficult when it comes to practice, you know. But I think it's a conscious thing. And it's also, I think, it's important to hold yourself accountable. To be like, you know, I did goof off a lot. Maybe I shouldn't do that in the future, you know. But it's also important to forgive yourself. Because it's also inefficient to be like, I goofed a lot so much. I'm not an artist anymore. I'll never make it. And you're not allowing yourself to move forward. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if you thought about them for all sorts of reasons, you would interfere. You know, you would try and compose it more beautifully in a more balanced way. You would try and suggest through your skill that you were as talented as you possibly could. You would bring in some kind of drama that actually was inherited from, you know, watching films on TV, not from things that happened to real people or anything to do with your life. You would, you know, sort of helplessly massage this into a kind of, I'm not saying that everything has to be directed towards absolute reality, but there is something to be said for things that contain, you know, I constantly say, actual information rather than, you know, some people don't care if something is, vinyl that looks like wood or wood. I mean, who cares? I mean, but actually it does matter to some people, and it matters to me.
It's just balance, right? Like, that's the thing that I've learned so much about life and art is balance. You go out every day, you have a party all the time and not focus on your work will suffer. And you won't be actively, you know, doing the things you need to be doing to improve and to get out there and improve on your craft and get jobs that you need and be able to go through that artistic journey. But the opposite can be said. If you lock yourself in a room and only focus about art, you'll forget what makes living worth living. And it's like this, it's almost like a video game, right? Like, you can't have one of too many. You need to have the bar be just in the middle. And so I listen to myself. And sometimes I feel like I don't want to be around people at all. Sometimes I feel like I need that solitude. And I listen to myself too. And I go into my room and read news or like start, you know, painting or something like that. It's a balance, but it's also about kind of figuring out what it is that you need.
No, but I agree with what you said, that art is life. I don't... And again, everything that I say is very personal, and I saw people saying, like, artists, successful artists who love what they're doing, saying completely opposite things. So I just don't want this to come across as I think all people should do that. How I feel about art, it's almost like, I hate to bring religion, but it's almost like church of art. If a person decides to be a monk in a monastery, there is no way they would go for a beer with a friend on Friday and then go to cinema the day after. They wake up, they go for a prayer, or whatever they do in their routine that they have chosen as a lifestyle. It's an unusual lifestyle, it's very different from everyone else, from the majority, but that's their choice. And no one said it's easy, but this is how they want to live their life. And so I think about art exactly the same thing. It's a lifestyle.
I think it's a constant struggle between that feeling of solitude and that feeling of wanting to be a part of community, to be liked by your peers, to be loved by your peers. But so much of what we do requires solitude. So much of what we do requires us to be comfortable in being alone. And sometimes that requires you to like really face some strong, harsh truths so that you can be comfortable with just yourself.
For some people it's hobby and it's fine. But for me it's a lifestyle. I can't imagine having it as a hobby or, that art is a lifestyle.
I think insanity, or I think it leads to a really frustrating life when all you think about is, how can I be happy? How can I be happy? How can I be happy? You know? I think that's unrealistic.